Forgot about this step.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jamie.
No, I thought I was being all good, and now I'm like lost. Hold on one second here.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay. All right. Is it working? Okay, there we go. All right. So area view title, serving you and your client. A little bit about us. Our office is in Westlake. My husband and I own the business. His father started it about 15 years ago. And I'd say like one of the main thrusts of our company is striving to deliver that excellent customer service for both realtors, lenders, and for their clients. We take a very proactive approach in problem solving. And I think, the aim is to treat people how we want to be treated. We're underwritten by Old Republic National Company. So all title companies are underwritten by someone, and they're really good. They're easy to work with, and we're able to get approval on things that maybe some title companies cannot. So that's a good thing. So I think when people think of title insurance, it's kind of this cloud of things they don't even understand. So I kind of like this graphic because it compares homeowners insurance, which I'm sure all of you have a good grasp on, and then title insurance. So title insurance covers things like if there was ever any, the very top actually explains it best. Homeowners insurance protects you from what might happen, and then title insurance protects you from things that have maybe already happened in the past. And it covers you for as long as you own the home. So like if there's forgery, or if someone, didn't disclose that there's a mortgage on the property and it wasn't recorded at the county, things like that. Things that a normal search wouldn't show. Title insurance is protecting you on. So what we do what's called title and escrow services. So the title side is like the search and clearing any liens on the property, or any problems that may be there, or anybody's interest that might be lingering. And then the escrow has to do more with the money, basically, anything that needs to be paid through the transaction, mortgages, things like that. And primarily our business profits from transactions for refinances and purchases. And refinances are really hot right now, which is good for us. But purchase is really our sustaining thing that's constant. We do residential and commercial if that ever comes up. And sometimes we get questions about properties that are outside of Ohio. We only handle ones that are in the state of Ohio. So this is just kind of a comparison of what title services are and what escrow services are. Sorry, I've been crying, little one. The title services are when we order the title exam. We do like a 42-year search on the property, checking all the deed chains and any mortgages, making sure they were released, any judgment liens. We list those requirements that we need to do prior to close, and we send everything to the lender. So we work kind of hand in hand with the lender, and we're really good about getting them what they need quickly, which is why I think we have a good refinance business right now, because they know that we're good at communicating with them. And then owner's title insurance, that's part of our title services too. So that's something that they get after everything's closed. They'll get their original deed, and they'll get their owner's title insurance policy. And then we also provide the lender with a title insurance policy, which they always like on transactions. For the escrow services, we obtain any payoffs, we clear any liens. You have to ask Daddy. Sorry. We clear any liens and fix any clouds on title. We gather all the fees. We do the actual signing with the closing documents, and then we record those deeds and mortgages at the county and disperse all the funds. And all that's a little tricky right now with COVID. We've had to adjust some things, but we're still making it work. So that's a good thing.
And that's like title companies are so important in that sense of you get all these weird things that happen, and the title company is the one that finds it. Like they, in terms of an encroachment being on your property, like whenever, or an easement where a driveway might come over on someone's side, or someone built a shed or a fence that was too far over, or all of these things that the title company then finds for you and then makes it where you have to figure, and Emily is terrific at helping figure those things out. So,
Thanks, Eddie. I
mhm,
appreciate that.
yeah,
So a little bit about our, we call it an ABA or affiliated business arrangement. So we have Area View Title and we have Area View Select Title. Area View Title owns 51% of Area View Select Title, and then the other 49% is owned by realtors. We have some big teams on it. I think you guys are the biggest team we have on there, and then some realtors as well. And they're pretty, you see them all around. I'm sure if you've started to do transactions, you've probably heard of, other ones around. So it's pretty common, and it's all above the board and very regulated. So the thing with Area View Select is those profits are shared. We twice a year, we distribute the profits of that 49% based on the percentage ownership of each entity or team or person in that. For you guys, I know Eddie has it set up where for any closed deals that you guys have during that period, it would directly correlate to profits that you would receive from the check that he would get as the Golden Group team. So I think that's a great way to set it up. It's very fair. It makes it, a great in. So not only will you get really good service, but you also get that extra bonus. So the important thing there is when you write your contracts to write Area View Select Title in there as the title and escrow company. And then and your deals will go, pretty much the same as any other deal with Area View Title. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to that.
yeah. So that's just to give you like an example. Say the check that we get is $10,000, in a 2 week, and you referred 50% of the business that closed during that time period for that check, you would get $5,000, and then that's just how it works. It's based on how much close volume is in that period of time. We did a lot of research. There are other companies that do this, and we did a lot of research when we were like finding the best company for us, and Earview is the best fit by far for us. Like they provide great service by also, the profit share is just a bonus. We've done this with other companies. We had this agreement with Chicago Title, for example, and it didn't go well. Like it was, they messed up a lot. Like there was a lot of issues. We had a lot of problems with it, which caused us to explore other options, and that's where we found Earview, and they've done a terrific job since then. Obviously, we have a high volume team, so it's finding a company that can keep up with it and also provide good service, and the profit share is a bonus. I mean, it's definitely awesome. But it's also a lot of it is based on the service and how good they are. So,
Eddie, can you talk a little bit about how you usually position the partnership when you're talking to a client about it? I mean, Emily, you mentioned it's all above board and all of that, but that's my first question. Then the second one being, as common as this is, do you often see that the other, party's agent that you're working with is making a different suggestion, and like, how do you manage through that?
Yeah, that is a terrific question. So, title companies, there isn't a right, like a lot of people will say that the seller gets to choose the title company. That's not entirely true. It's when you write your contract up, you write in Earview Select when you're representing the buyer. So normally, like a lot of agents, Earview has a good reputation. They're good. It's a good title company to work with. So most sellers aren't going to cause, or agents aren't going to cause a big battle over the title company if it's a good title company that they've had good experiences with. But there are you might get a client every blue moon, and it's very, very, very rare that how I present it to a buyer is I say, hey, because you have to sign an affiliated business disclosure that discloses this to your client that says, hey, we're going to get we benefit financially from the performance of the company. So how you're explaining that is just say, hey, we researched all the title companies in the area. This is the title company that we felt was the best fit. They do a great job. Their rates are very competitive. And, because that we have an ownership in them, it allows us to work closer with them. And it allows, so that's kind of how I position it when I'm talking to our client of why they should use them. And our benefit is just because, we help support them just like they support us, and that's kind of how normally, honestly, your buyer will never care. Like it's so rare that because they don't know a title company. They might have a friend or a family member who does. And in those scenarios, yeah, like, it's understandable. Yeah, exactly. But like, if they don't, you're kind of trying to guide them to someone that does a good job, more than anything else, and Erie View does a great job, and that's kind of, it's a very underrated thing that, say for example, on our last company that we were using, their follow-up was horrible. We had clients that would get into fights with the title worker, like literally where they are literally like fighting with each other. The emails are like calling each other names and like, I mean, just really crazy stuff that you're like, what is going on? Like, why are you causing more drama here? You know what I mean? When you have those scenarios that happen. So when you find someone who's good, you kind of want to, try. You can't steer anyone anyway. You can present options, you always want to present, a few options, but if you kind of steer it that way, where you're like, hey, here are a few options, but Erie View does a great job. Normally people are going to trust you to recommend the best company. Listing agents are a whole different ballgame because they might have these affiliations with their own title company, and if you go and say, hey, seller, pay my buyer's closing costs also, like if you're saying, hey, pay $4,000, so now they're paying their own closing costs and their closing costs, and that battle is a little harder, because if they're paying for all the closing costs in it, it's hard to pick the title company in those scenarios, so it's a challenge, but you can always just try as hard as and as long as you'll start to pick up over time the title companies that are better or worse, where again, you're representing the client and the deal as much as that, where you don't want to blow up a transaction over a title company, but you want to push it toward the companies that you feel comfortable with, because bad title companies can ruin deals, and that's where you kind of want to, say, for example, we won't use barristers. Like if barristers is in one of our contracts, we will not use them. It is not allowed on our team. It's one of our rules, so like if someone was trying to do that, there's no way we're going to do that.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned barristers. So I know like in the Howard Hanna contracts, like on the purchase agreement, barristers is automatically written in as the preferred title company. Can you share on like the Keller Williams documents or like the Golden Group documents if there's a specific title company already written into the documents that you would have to cross out and write in your review select?
There's a line there that says, because our office has one of these arrangements with the title company, they own GM title and escrow. So they have one of these arrangements. So that one is the one that's written into our contract, but there's a blank line right next door to it that you can easily go and just write an Erie View title as part of the dot loop.
And then everyone would have to initial that, correct?
No, an original contract, no. It'll just be you write an Erie View select title.
And then one more question. You said barristers is not allowed. Is that like a Golden Group rule, or is that a Keller Williams rule?
Golden Group rule. No,
Okay.
They're just the worst. They're the worst by such a long margin. It's not even like the last deal we did with them. It was so funny because like the buyer's agent really wanted to use them, and the deal, we were on it like glue, like because we knew how bad they were. Casey was just like, I need you to do this. So it finally gets due. She's like, oh wow, well. And then the check didn't come for 2 weeks, and they sent it to the wrong Keller Williams office. And that's what they had to do, a stop and reissue. They sent it to the wrong office again, and then had to do a stop and reissue again. Like it was just comical because we were like, oh wow, wow, it actually made it. And then literally it took 3 weeks for the check to get here. I mean, it's every single deal. That's
so if it's automatically written into Howard Hanna, so then in those situations, that's something that you try to address immediately when you are negotiating.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a listing and then someone writes in like, hey, we want to use barristers, that's when you go back and be like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable using them. Like if you want to choose another one, I understand, but I recommend Erie View Title. They do a great job. But if, there's another one that you really, but we're just not going to use barristers. It's just not going to happen.
Have you ever had a situation where, because like working for Howard Hanna, like I know that they post barristers because they own barristers. Have you ever had a situation where like you had to stay down on like the barristers?
Oh yeah. But the nice thing is, I shouldn't say nice thing, but like I think a lot of people know how bad they are, so it's not, and they don't have the greatest of reputations, so you can get away with being a little more with them, you can be like, hey, like we're just not using them, and people have like a little bit more of an understanding, but that's kind of why, having you start to realize once you start like sending stuff over to Erie View and you send stuff over to others, like you'll realize how smooth it goes compared to, and when you have one bad one, you'll realize like, whoa, like this is craziness like that happens in these. Like my very first deal was with barristers, and it wound up the seller was a for sale by owner, and he was trying to get a net sheet from the title company. That's all I was trying to do. It wound up where the title worker and the seller were cussing at each other, swearing at each other, like to the point where I had to have the owner of the company call the seller and ask him to like calm the situation down. So he like kept the deal with them. My very first contract, like flipping out at each other, like horrible things being sent in emails that are like, this is a customer, like it's crazy, like, oh man, like. Yeah. So
that brings up a good point that I wanted to ask Emily. So Emily, like for like a net sheet, or if you were just trying to like run like title information for like a buyer or seller, and it was like very preliminary, they weren't like making any sort of moves just yet, is there a cost to that if like if they're not doing any like transactions just yet?
No, not at all. We do those night and day. So it's so what I was leading into was we have this app, but we also have, if you look at the bottom, that docs@erieviewtitle.com email, and that goes to everyone in the office. And yeah, we do those all the time. So we just need, the particulars like the property address, purchase price, proposed closing date. If it's a seller, the commission, any other relevant details, and we can spit that back to you really quick. If it's on the weekend or something and you're kind of in a pinch, feel free to you can text me or email me and we'll get it done. But we're constantly keeping an eye on things. So yeah, we send those out really quick, no charge at all. We're happy to do those. I put on here also our title quote app. So if you just plug that in, if you go to Google and just plug in this link, and then once you get it on your phone, if you want this app on your phone, you can just, if you see that little red circle, if you click that, it will give you the option to add it to your home screen. And then you'll just have it there, and you can, you choose a login, and then, that's all set up. So either way, you could do it, whichever way is more comfortable is great with us. We don't care either way. So some people like to fiddle around, and even if you have a couple different ones that you want to run, like a couple different sales price that you want to run, we're happy to do those for you, but no charge.
I just shared that in Teams also, if you need to.
Thank you. Yeah. Did anyone have any questions about the app at all? I just want to mention for buyers, obviously, we would quote what our fees would be. The lender fees are something that we usually don't have at that point. When we do have the lender fees, we'll put those in as well. But that's usually something that's ironed out after the clear to close. That's usually, they give us all their fees. We make sure we match, things like that. But we're happy to give our fees ahead of time. And in negotiating, if you ever run into the other agent saying, you know, mine's cheaper or something like that, we're happy to run the numbers and, you know, compare. They can compare, and we'll see, you know, which is cheaper. You know, you're happy to go that route. You can say, well, you know, because we're pretty competitive, if not lower than some of the places around here. So feel free to use that.
And one big caveat when you do the NetSheet app is the tax prorations and the date. So you really want to make sure that you add in, there'll be like a bi-weekly amount. So you'll take the full year tax rate and then like divide it in half, you know, and put in like the first half and the second half. But that ties to the date, you know, so like if you put in like, you know, December, like if you do that and you don't add that in, then the tax proration won't be calculated right, and that's a huge cost to a seller when they're coming down on that. So like, I mean, it could be the difference of someone not having anything and having $6,000 or a $7,000 charge, and then when you come to closing, they're like, hey, this is $7,000 or $8,000 difference or whatever, and it's really coming from the net sheet of not having that. So just a big, if you're uncomfortable in the beginning, just ask Emily to do it because it will probably be helpful.
Yeah, it's very easy for us. We are happy to do them, so don't feel shy. So along with the net sheets, some other things that we can help with. If you have any questions about a transaction, even if we're not handling it, we're happy to help you. If something doesn't, you know, seem right, or you're not understanding something that's going on in the transaction, feel free to reach out anytime. We answer our phone. Also, you can call my cell or anything like that, and I'll find out what we need to find. If you ever need like labels for a certain neighborhood, if you're doing some mailings, certain neighborhoods, or even like certain criteria like sales price, or maybe you have a client that just wants, you know, a ranch and you're looking for those in, you know, North Olmsted or something like that. We can get very specific on, you know, sales price and things like that. You know, feel free to ask, and I'll let you know if I can do it or not. So we can also get like data on that too. Like, you know, maybe just you're looking at sellers or owners that have owned their home for, you know, 6+ years in a certain development. You know, we're able to get that criteria for you. If you need help with like postcards and things like that, we're happy to help with like the designing and sending them out. We just have to be careful of RESPA. You know, there's a certain amount that we're allowed to spend per realtor each year. So it's like, I think it's like $50 per realtor per year. So we're able to help to a certain amount, but then, and it's usually for mailings, it's usually the postage that's expensive. And then other things we can help with is brokers opens, first-time home buyer seminars, you know, anything you can think of. If you hear of another place doing it and you're wondering if we can, just feel free to ask. You know, we'll try to help if we can anytime.
To give you guys an example of something like that. So for example, Harborview, for example, I went to Emily and was like, hey, can you give me all the houses that have a tax value over $1 million for houses in Cleveland and Lorraine, you know, because obviously the people who have those houses could afford to buy this house, you know, so it just makes more sense to send it to them, you know, or just different, you know, and as if you ever get a listing, you know, that is a challenge, you know, and those are the kind of things that we'll brainstorm and potentially bring Emily, you know, and see if what she can help with and those types of things, you know, or events, you know, like I know that Emily was going to help us with, you know, a new buyers thing with one of our agents, you know, I know that when we've expressed doing, you know, different things, you know, they've expressed, you know, openness to helping collaborate with stuff. So Emily is one of the nicest people in all of real estate, so do not be a stranger to reach out to her.
Emily, one of the kind of onboarding requirements that we have on the team is about attending trainings, you know, outside. So you mentioned that on the previous slide, I think If you would go, it was like the last bullet. I was just wondering, do you have anything specifically scheduled at this point, like seminars or trainings or whatnot?
I do not right this second.
Okay.
Last year we did 3 or 4 of them, and then we were getting ready to do some, and then all this happened. So I'm not sure. Yeah.
Oh, what happened?
I know, right? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I'll have to start brainstorming on ways that we can get around that. I know like a lot of event centers are very, picky on how many people can be there and things like that. But we'll for sure let you guys know and invite you if there's some things coming up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, Emily, what are like the things you see agents doing that you would like to see improved, or like to have the agents have good habits when they're getting started right from the beginning? What are the best things that you could recommend them to do to help you?
Let's see. So an easy thing is, I think, like, sorry, I'm trying to get rid of my screen. An easy thing would be like on your contracts, when you fill them out, like have the buyer or the seller put their contact information. Usually, right after we get the transaction, we're reaching out to them to send them the documents that we need filled out. We do that via dot loop for customers that are, savvy to that. And so having their contact information is just, that makes it easier on our end. We don't have to reach out to you or Casey to get that. And I would just say also just, I'm sure you guys get bombarded by emails. So, if you're wondering how a deal is going, feel free to reach out. We're pretty good about sending out like statuses. So I think just kind of keeping an eye on that. And like, if you see anything like highlighted that we need, and it's something that you can help us with, you would want to make sure you do that. Sorry. I have to talk.
Okay.
Do you think that the net sheet that you were talking about, would you mind pulling that up so that we could look at that together?
Oh, I don't know if we can do that.
I think I might actually. Do I have it pulled up? Let's see. I had it earlier.
I probably could. That was a good idea.
Oh.
Yeah, we can do one really quick. What is my password?
And can we also like talk about maybe examples of when it would be helpful to have a net sheet like run?
What you'll want to do like a net sheet when you do like your first listing appointment with someone, so like when you're sitting down and you're telling a seller, hey, we can sell your house for 300,000. That's great, but like you also have, tax prorations, title costs, commissions, and all those things that factor in. So, you also want to show them, hey, after all that's paid, this is what you actually walk away with if you sell it at, 280,000, or 300,000. A general rule of thumb, this isn't always accurate, but it gives you a ballpark that if you're just like, you don't have this or you're with someone or whatever, and it's roughly about 10%, goes to that. So they get about 90% of what the actual cost is. So if it's, a $300,000 house, they're roughly walking away with about $270,000 after tax prorations and different things like that. But something else to remind them is if they have taxes escrowed for closing, when the house closes, they wind up getting a check back, a year or a week later or 2 weeks later, with that remaining amount that was in their escrow account for their insurance or their taxes. So, what they're walking away at closing, they, is that, and then they wind up with another check, for that escrow amount after all those accounts are closed, for an additional amount. So, what's on that sheet is also that plus whatever's in their escrow account. Right, Emily? That's right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a really cool, I wish there was a way, that is one of my biggest pet peeves about the Title app, is that there isn't a good way to show, like, because you'll have to say, you probably don't know if they paid their first half taxes yet, or if they paid their full year, you know what I mean? And it's like that amount, you know, I don't, if you want me to share, or do you want to share your screen of the? Yeah, I'm just going to share this really quick. Sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't working.
Oh, okay.
But
oh no.
We could help you with the tax aspect of it. Like when you're getting ready to list a house, if a lot of realtors ask us to pull up a tax and legal for them and send it to them, which will show, you know, what taxes have been paid for the year.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah, so we're always happy to do that.
So when you sign into, you sign up for an account, you know, and you sign Emily as your rep, you're going to have either a title quote or the seller net sheet. So the seller net sheet is what we want to work with here. So let's just use, for example, 5541 East Lake Road just sold this week. So that pulls up the address. So the sale price is listed for $264,900. So we'll use that as the sale price. The closing date. So the date on the contract was, I believe it was 11/6. Additional transaction details. I never put anything in here. Is there something I should be putting in there, Emily?
Let's see.
Okay. I've never put anything in there ever.
So that's like we can give them what's called a reissue rate on the title insurance. That both affects both the buyer and the seller. Okay. We automatically apply that, so that's not really something you could probably put in right there. Yeah, okay. We'll add that at the end. That's usually when that happens.
Okay, so we leave this blank. We leave endorsements blank. We leave mortgage payoffs blank because we don't know that. You know, we'll leave that to them. And then we get into real estate brokers commission. You know, so say, let's just say this guy's given us a bunch of business. So we did this at 7% on the first 100. Actually, we did this at a straight 6%, to be honest. But let's just say we did it at 7% on the first 100,000 and 5% on the balance, you know, which is pretty common in this area. So in those scenarios, the listing broker, us, will keep 4% on the first 100,000. And then anything above 300, we'll keep 3%. And then on the buyer side, they'll keep 3% on the first 100,000 and 2%. So that gives us the 7 and the 5, if that makes sense. Okay. Does that all make sense? No? Yeah. Don't all like that. Okay. And then the transaction amount will be $499 for a seller. And then homeowners association, there's no homeowners association there, but that's where, you know, if you had monthly dues, you know, or anything along those lines, that's where you'd want to put that in here. We don't have that here, but property tax prorations. So see, you have the first year and the second year half. So going back into MLS, go down. So actually, let's just go, if you were actually going for like a seller, like what would be in the MLS? So you go into realist, right? Realist, or you could go to the auditor's website, either one. And then you can go to the address, 5541. So, you know, this will give you, oh, geez. Oh, that's weird. That's not the owner. Interesting. So that didn't come up. Pulling up stuff from New York, which is always cool. So then you go to their last name. Oh, and if I could spell it right, that would help. Okay, there we go. So let's pull up, this will pull up the property info. So when Casey goes in and pulls up all the information that she's adding in to the MLS, this is where she's pulling it from, you know, is right in here. You know, so down here you can see that you can see the property taxes right here. You know, you can see everything about the house on the page. You know, this is where she's pulling, hey, if there's how many full baths, what's the square footage, all this stuff. But right here is where we want the taxes. So 2019, it's 4382. Quick, what's 4382 divided by 2? No? All right. 2191. So we come back over here. The first year half taxes, 2191. Isn't that what I said? I'm sorry, I'm bad at math. 20. Okay. And then the second year, 2191. So I always just put the first half has been paid when it's after June. Because wouldn't you say that's, Emily, would that be right? Or is there, should I be putting something here for, I never know.
Right. So for previous years, so yeah, typically if it's already half past the year, I'd say June or July, that the second half has usually been paid by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just say first half has already been paid. If it's past June, just put that. And then other seller expense credits. So if the buyer was asking for a closing cost credit or something along those lines, that's where you'd put it in. You just say closing costs. It's an expense. $4,000, something like that. And then you'll go to calculate. And that's going to spit out, hey, the net sheet is this amount, and then it's going to show the seller all these things broken down. So they see that. But you see the property tax proration, it's $6,000. So it's a pretty sizable amount if you get this wrong. So I always kind of try and emphasize, hey, like, make sure that you have something in there, and because that's, and then make sure you get the closing costs in there always too. So then when you have it in here, you can go up to the top here, you can email it. I normally email it to myself so then I can forward it. You can go to save, so you have it to be saved. Dennis, quote. Okay. And then this is what it looks like when it comes back in. Like when they get it, they'll say, it says, please look at this estimate, and they're going to get something that looks like this, so it's going to look just like that. You can go and see where all the closing costs are coming from, the conveyance fee, what the commission they're paying, their tax proration. Okay, does that all make sense?
Yeah, thanks for showing that, Eddie. I appreciate it.
Yep. Or you can just ask Emily to do it.
We're happy to do that.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, I would sign up for one of those accounts with them, when you can, because that is really helpful. I use it almost regularly, so yeah, but does anyone have any other questions for Emily? I know it's a lot. The neat thing is,
I do have a quick question. I'm sorry. Emily, at the beginning, you had mentioned like title insurance. When does someone obtain title insurance?
So the title insurance is in effect when their deed gets recorded at the county. So the title insurance is a part of the transaction, paid with the closing costs, but it actually is in effect, right when it gets recorded at the county, the deed. Does that make sense? And then for as long as they own the home, it is there. So it basically, if anyone were to come back to say they had part ownership of the property or there was some sort of claim, our underwriter would protect them up to the purchase price amount on that property if there was ever an issue. But that's when it goes in effect. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Sorry.
What was I going to say? Yeah, title is it's probably the least known about, but it's definitely probably the most important because mortgages are stuff that you find about early. Title is stuff you find about later. Like it's if someone has an issue with their mortgage, you find out about that in the pre-approval, and you find about it before you even make an offer, and you find about those types of things. Title things are things you find after you're under contract, and you're weeks after you're under contract, and then something happens where I had a scenario, for example, where the buyer was buying a house and the person selling the house had a huge business loan, and they didn't know that loan was tied to their house. They used their house as collateral. And when you do that, that means that loan now needs to get paid off when their house closes. No one knew that. It wasn't really tied to anything. So they didn't find that out until they did a full title search. And even at that point, it was like they found out about it like a week before closing, literally it was less than 7 days, and then they can't sell the house and the buyer can't buy it, and all it blows up, and it's just crazy, and realistically, it probably could have been found earlier if the title company probably did a better job. And guess who did the title work on that? Barristers of Ohio. But I could go on and on. I have countless stories, so that's why it's not just one thing that happened with barristers. I have probably 10 or more. Yeah. I will give them credit though. They are Wendy Shahada with short sales with barristers is the only caveat to that deal. Have you ever met Wendy Shahada? Emily, do you know who she is?
No.
She is the best short sale person. Yeah, she only does short sales, and she is incredible with them. Like yeah, and it was like insane. I used to tell her, I'm like, why do you work at this company? Like you're amazing, and So yeah, that was but yeah, that's the one caveat to that rule is short sales. But yeah, Emily, I'm sure that you guys do a great job with those. We just haven't had them as much, but they are coming.
We can either some realtors like to be hands-on on short sales, some do not. So however you want to approach it, if you want us to be kind of like the one kind of directing it and working directly with the lender, we're happy to do that.
Yes, that is what we want. Short sales are not short. They are called short sales for a very silly reason, because they are very long. Like they are long sales. Like literally there are stories. There's someone in our office that had a short sale go for 3.5 years. I know friends that have gone, or Rochelle Glinius did multiple ones over 2 years. It was those scenarios are when a buyer owes more on or a seller owes more on the house than what they're going to get. And then if you have multiple mortgages out on those, the title company and us and everyone has to work together to try and get where everyone's going to get their fair share. Or when you have the third mortgage or the second mortgage, and the primary mortgage, everyone has to sign off on them. So having someone like with a title company who can kind of be on top of it and like following up with those things is incredibly valuable in those scenarios. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say I did want to mention when we send out our initial status, we try to do that within probably as soon as we get the exam back, we do kind of a status of everything. If there's anything potentially that we think may possibly hold up the transaction, we make sure we let you know right away. So I'd say a thing that is very common is, especially if your buyer or seller has a common name, the state of Ohio Department of Taxation judgment liens, they search not only the property, but they also search the parties that are involved in the transaction. So when we search their names, sometimes we have to research to make sure that it's not our same person, if that makes sense. It's not that they're on the property, it's that we're searching the person to make sure that it's not them. Because if it is them, we have to pay it as a part of the transaction. And those can take up to 10 to 14 business days. So they take a long time. So if you ever see those pop up, it's just something to keep an eye on.
So when John Smith buys a house, might take a little extra longer. Yeah. Good to know.
That's right.
What would you say are the biggest, just commenting on the issues that you have, what are the biggest issues in title that you typically see commonly?
I would say, those judgment liens are one thing, but also prior owner mortgages. The banks, when a mortgage is paid off, it's supposed to be released at the county. They have I think up to 90 days to release it. But it is common that they haven't been released. And so we run into, sellers saying, well, I don't have a mortgage on the property, but then there is a mortgage showing on the property. And depending on when they paid it off, they might not have that information, like the loan number and things like that. So depending on the bank, it could be kind of a process.
Going through right now. Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
And what always will happen is that mortgage was purchased by another bank and then by another bank. And then you're going through a rabbit hole trying to get this cleared. And just perfect example yesterday, literally, I had a house that was supposed to close yesterday, and that exact example happened where the mortgage was cleared years ago. It just never was fully cleared off the title. And it came up and it was supposed to be cleared. It was 8/14 is when the title company sent everything over, and we still haven't gotten the clear off, from it, on 9/6. So yeah, everyone is really happy about it. Trust me.
I bet, especially
Yeah.
now with everything going on. A lot of the people who answer the phone are working from home, and I'm finding that it's a lot slower, like the responses that you get on things, and they don't have access to all the things that they need access to. And but I would mention that if you run into a client that has one of those, have them be proactive, because they sometimes are a louder, more powerful force than us, the third party. So if they call and they're angry, a lot of times they might get further than us calling and being angry.
Can I just kind of on that topic really quick, with title, like I was kind of explaining, because the seller's mad that the title company didn't find this earlier, and all these things, and I'm like, I think a lot of title companies wait for the home inspection to be completed before they do their full title search. Am I wrong by thinking that, in turn, because it's probably your largest expense, isn't it? A full title search is the title large.
The exam is costly. We when we get the contract, we just move forward with it and dig right in. And sometimes it gets canceled, and that happens. And hopefully we'll get the deal back. But that doesn't always happen. So
I didn't know if you had a policy that like you order it like immediately, or because I know some, just full disclosure to everyone, some title companies do that. They don't order the full title work immediately, with the hope, or because that happens, a deal might bomb, and then there's like, what is it, $350, $400 or something like that? It's
depending on the search. If it's the commercial search, it can be very, very expensive. So that's $100.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of title companies don't do it immediately, because they don't want to get stuck with that. So that's the nice thing. Erie View does that quickly, so it saves you. Had they have been doing it, with this deal, they probably would have found it a week earlier, and I wouldn't have to be negotiating my soul to let them move in early on this deal. It's horrible. You shouldn't do that. It's bad practices. But it's you get in these scenarios where that's the only thing holding up the deal, and it's kind of a frustrating thing, so because everyone has their movers. Everyone has everything lined up, and it doesn't get resolved, and you're just finding this out, the week of, and a title company's telling you everything's fine, but then everything blows up, that final week, because you're supposed to have it, like we were supposed to have it, they said 15 days, we were supposed to have it last week. That's not how things work,
I would say another thing that helps. So, like say we get an exam back and it shows that there's a mortgage on the property. We don't know, if we don't have our seller initial docs back, we don't know yet if they send us a form saying that there's no mortgage on the property, then we know there's an issue. But if we don't get those forms back, we don't know. We'll assume that, they're going to send in their forms with that loan number, and we'll order a payoff like we normally do. You know what I mean? Like we don't know that it should have been released until we get that information from the seller. So it's really important in a transaction to let your customers know to fill out those initial documents, because that gives us really important information.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because that I know that's something I'm bad at. I need to improve on that. As getting
follow up with them, but yeah,
I need to do better at that. So cool. Does anyone have any other questions or anything? Thanks so much for your time this morning, Emily. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Nice to meet you all this way.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll meet in person someday soon.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah.
Sometime in the future. All right. Well, thanks so much, Emily. Again, if no one has anything else, I will see you all. Enjoy your Labor Day and the rest of the week.
Hey, Emily, actually, will you type your, I saw it in the final slide, but will you type your cell phone into the chat so that I can just log that in my phone real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sorry, I'm used to Zoom. I'm not.
I know, yeah.
So I'm like trying to figure out. Sorry. I could just go back to my final slide.
It's like the little thought bubble.
Yeah, I think there should be.
Emily, if you say what it is, I can type it in the chat.
I could just, I'll type it in there. Yeah, that would probably be helpful.
Okay, it's my email is Emily, EMILY, at ErieViewTitle.com. And then my cell phone is 216-543-4918.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Sorry, I'm not really good at this.
No, cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You guys
All right,
have a
thanks,
good
guys.
rest of the weekend.
Bye. You too.
Yeah,
Bye.
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 This funny, the preview mode.
Yeah.